that's kind of what I expected when I first saw the trailer. I said, oh, not again, not one of these again. And Paul W.S. Anderson, the director, has kind of made a career out of movies like this, right? And then I saw a story by George R.R. Martin. I said, okay, George Martin is known for setting up interesting character dynamics, like characters with these internal conflicts where they are kind of in conflict with themselves. And this basic setup, if you take that from an average George Martin story and then put some action schlock on top of it, the end result might actually be pretty cool. So I walked in and said, okay, let's see if you can do this. And it turns out they couldn't.
So you've seen the short story?
I actually went out and read it afterwards. It's a very short story. It's very anemic. The basic idea of it is intact, right? So one thing I actually expected was that this would just make a hatchet job of the source material, that it would take some names and maybe some imagery, and the rest would just be generic nonsense. And that's kind of surprisingly, that is kind of not what this is. What this actually is that it takes basically a skeleton of a story and realizes that that's not enough to hold up a movie. And so it piles other stuff on top of it, but the two don't really connect. In the short story, Gray Alice just is just hired by the Queen and the bodyguard. She goes out into the Lost Lands, hires Boyd, and basically he leads her into a trap, but actually she set up a trap and they fight and she wins and she takes his skin back to the Queen. And then the bodyguard essentially realizes that both he and the Queen are now cursed by having their wishes granted, which is how Gray Alice operates. And that's basically the short story. And so if you wanted to adapt this, you would have to flesh it out a lot, right? You would have to give more context. But what this movie essentially did was to just throw in some generic sci-fi post-apocalyptic stuff and just call it a day. Like, it did not really connect those two different pieces, I think. As I was watching it, I was kind of saying, yeah, this is not bad. I want to see how they bring this together. And then movie's over. And turns out they didn't. Like, I think if you did this properly, if you did a proper adaptation of this, you would take the basic skeleton of it, and then you would expand the lore, right? You would explore more about what Gray Alice is like and why and who she is and why she can't turn anybody away, right? And that was something that could and should have been expanded on. Like, why is Gray Alice this way, and why can she not turn anybody down, and why does she know everything, and why can't she do anything? Each of which is fine. Like, that's kind of this idea, like this whole idea of you have this immense power, but you are basically cursed to destroy other people's lives by giving them what they want. And it turns out what people want is not what they need. That kind of, like, that's a very George Martin type idea. And that is kind of why I like his stories and his books, because it's full of ideas like this. But then if you're adapting that, can you not build on that a little bit?